Manufacturer manipulation, a wall ride, a walk-off winner, and was Martinsville a good race? Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. Drove back from Martinsville on Sunday night, got home around 1 o'clock. Now we're going to get into what happened on Sunday at Martinsville. First off, thanks to everybody that said hello at the racetrack this weekend. Massively appreciate it. If you walk up and say hi during the race, I can't hear a dang thing at all. So I would love to talk racing. I just can't hear what anybody's saying, but I appreciate everybody coming up and saying hello. Now, let's get into what happened in the closing laps of Sunday's NASCAR Cup Series race in Martinsville, because it feels like Richmond 2013 all over again. It's like these guys do not learn, and it's incredibly frustrating. It seems like Freddie Kraft maybe got his Brett Griffin 2013 Richmond moment where the guys on DBC are going to be able to rib him about this going forward, because in the closing laps of Sunday's race, Christopher Bell is 1 lap down. He needs an extra point. He needs another point, rather, to be able to tie William Byron for that Final Four spot in Phoenix. Bell owns the tiebreaker because of his second place finish back at Las Vegas, where he came up just short on tires trying to catch Joey Logano. So there's only one other car that's also 1 lap down ahead of Christopher Bell, that being Bubba Wallace, who happens to be a TRD teammate to the 20 car, Christopher Bell. Joe Gibbs Racing, 2311 Racing. Essentially the same team here. And you're going to want to help out your corporate teammate in this situation. So with about 3 laps to go, Bubba Wallace starts to slow down. He has a tire going down. And he slows down enough that on the last lap, going into turn 3, Christopher Bell goes underneath him and passes him for that position. But then more controversy happens there, because Bell goes up into the wall, gasses it up, and wall rides the rest of the way around like he's Ross Chastain back in 2022. So NASCAR now has this situation on their hands where they're like, well, first off, we think the 23 maybe did something here. So that's a whole side issue they're going to look at. But now they have to look at this wall ride, which is against the rules. NASCAR and the competitors got together and everybody said, no, we cannot have that happen again after Ross did it. Very cool. Very dangerous, especially with a crossover gate right there as well. So NASCAR spent, I think, 27 minutes in total deliberating and trying to decide, is the 24 car in or is the 20 car in? Ultimately, they decided that Christopher Bell did violate the safety rule and they put William Byron in. The rule that they say that Christopher Bell violated is 10.5.2.6 of the rulebook, safety penalties and penalty options. It says, quote, safety is a top priority of NASCAR and NEM. Therefore, any violations deemed to compromise the safety of an event or otherwise pose a dangerous risk to the safety of competitors, officials, spectators, or others are treated with the highest degree of seriousness. Safety violations will be handled on a case-by-case basis. Ultimately, Christopher Bell put himself in danger. He put the safety of the competitors, safety of the spectators as well in danger in that situation. And NASCAR had to penalize him for it because they had already said before that Ross Chastain's move was outlawed. It cannot happen again. And now, yeah, he didn't go full Ross Chastain. He only went about half Ross Chastain, which is about maybe all you ever want to go. But he ended up doing the same thing that Ross did, and NASCAR has to penalize him in that situation, because if they don't, what's to stop somebody else from doing that in the future? So you have to issue a penalty in this scenario. The Joe Gibbs Racing brass was at the racetrack. Dave Alpern, Heather Gibbs, Joe Gibbs, they all went down to the NASCAR trailer to plead their case. And ultimately, NASCAR said this is not an appealable penalty. And Joe Gibbs looked absolutely devastated. And I mean, he should, right? He had a car that was going to race for a championship next week, and now he has no cars racing for a championship in Phoenix, which is a big bummer, especially for a team of that caliber. Now, Christopher Bell's crew chief, Adam Stevens, says that he has SMT data to show that Bell didn't do this on purpose. But I mean, visually, like we can see what happened here, dude. So I think ultimately that's what it comes down to, and NASCAR ruled against that. Now, there, of course, is the issue of the 23 car. Because in the closing laps of the race, Freddie Kraft said, quote, 24 and 20 are separated by 1 point. Then he calls 3 to go at the line for Bubba Wallace. And then Bubba cocomes on the radio and says, think I got a tire going down. And Freddie's like, okay, nurse it home from there. So he slows down dramatically. Now, is it a coincidence that the only car that Christopher Bell is able to pass for position on the racetrack that's also 1 lap down has an issue, is also a Toyota? It's suspicious. I'm not saying that they did do it. I'm also not saying that they didn't. You can connect the dots out here. There are far more conspiracies that people believe with far less evidence than this, where things maybe don't line up as much. It's lining up in this situation. Now, NASCAR did take the 23 car, Bubba Wallace, post-race to tear it down, to find the mechanical issue. Now, I watched the onboard of this, and I will say, there was something wrong with that car in the final 3 laps. Was that self-inflicted? Did he actually have a tire going down? All 4 tires were up when they came to pit road. Or did something mechanical break on the car? We'll have to wait for NASCAR to determine that. But it is mildly suspicious for that. But they're not even the only ones that are potentially guilty in this situation. Let's flip over to the Chevy camp real quick, because William Byron is going to get recoded by this. Did he do anything wrong? No, he was struggling at the end of this race, much like he was last year. William Byron in a cutoff race, never put money on him. It's not pretty at all. There's a struggle for all 500 laps at Martinsville. So what ended up happening there is the 24 car is fading, and they cannot lose any more positions. The 1 car of Ross Chastain and the 3 car of Austin Dillon are very aware of this. They are told over the radio that the 24 is 1 point to the good. Austin Dillon asked, is Ross aware of the situation here? The 1 crew chief relays it to Ross and says, hey, 24 is 1 to the good. Basically sending the message, do not pass your Chevy teammate here.
You know the deal? Trying to find him and tell him. Justin, you tell crew chief also clear off.
24 is 1 to the good. 1 point to the good down there.
So those 2 basically form a blockade. It's Top Gun style. They're watching his 6 out back. C.W. McCall, convoy, they're blocking the road, not letting anybody by, and just rolling around behind the 24 car like wingmen. And that's a violation of the 100% rule. I mean, it absolutely is. And yeah, William Byron didn't explicitly do anything wrong. Everybody's correct there, but he's guilty by association. Like, he gets into the playoffs because of these guys not allowing anybody to pass him. And those guys easily could have passed him. Like, they definitely slowed their speeds down. Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi talked about it on the Teardown podcast, where they were openly laughing about how slow these guys were going to stay behind the 24 car. So ultimately, in section 5.5, the performance obligation section of the rule book, NASCAR says in section A, NASCAR requires its competitors to race at 100% of their ability with the goal of achieving their best possible finishing position in the event. Section B says any competitor who takes action with the intent to artificially alter the finishing positions of the event, or encourages, persuades, or induces others to artificially alter the finishing positions of the event, shall be subject to a penalty from NASCAR as specified in Section 10, Violations and Disciplinary Action. I would argue that those 2 cars did not run to 100% of their ability. They did alter the finish because they should have passed the 24 car. Now, if you penalize this, does this open up Pandora's box, especially like super speedway racing or something like that? You can certainly make the argument for it. But in terms of violating the 100% rule, they absolutely did. And NASCAR can go back and look at the SMT data, to take a look at that. Ultimately, NASCAR's got a bit of a mess on their hands here, which is unfortunate. Now, a ton of people are blaming the system, right? Blaming this elimination style format system. And I'm not here to disagree with that. However, I genuinely don't think when NASCAR created the system back in 2014 that they anticipated this level of manufacturer manipulation. I don't think they expected manufacturers to go to this extent to alter the outcome of races. Now, is there a clear fix for it? Absolutely. You go back to a 36 race points championship, no elimination style format, and everything that goes with that. That's not happening. So we're not going to talk about that because NASCAR gets these walk-off moments. The Tyler Reddick win last week, the Ryan Blaney win this week, which are exciting, and it puts these guys into a championship race. Even if the championship 4 drivers aren't even the best 4 drivers that were, remaining in the round of 8, which is another completely different topic. So yeah, can they go and monitor all the radio transmissions? Sure, they could, but they're not going to, not in real time, at least. There's a big problem here, a big problem. And I feel bad for NASCAR. And I know people are going to say, oh, NASCAR's the one that put them in this situation. I understand that. But again, the integrity of the sport is being compromised by the people participating. And you need to send a message at that. You need to send gigantic fines. You need to suspend people. You need to send a message that you cannot do this. And now, yeah, if it is a fine and it's not big enough, Chevy's going to be like, okay, like we'll just continue to do this because if that's the fine, like it's worth more to us to have a car in the championship race than whatever this monetary fine is. It's not an enviable position for NASCAR to be in here. But ultimately, I think something has to be done because it was excessive. That's just excessive. And it's so blatantly obvious, too, which is probably the worst part about it. And it's unfortunate because I thought Martinsville was a really good race on Sunday. So we'll have to wait for the penalty report to come out on Tuesday, potentially Wednesday. If NASCAR wants to have a big time news dump, Tuesday is the perfect day to do it because it's election day. Get out and vote for everybody out there. But it would be a good way to kind of hide everything that the scandal that you have going on. Just saying my PR brain is like, Tuesday's a good time to release some news if you want to, because people will not be paying attention to that on the grand scale of things considered. Obviously, us and NASCAR fans will be, but not general media. So that brings us to, was Martinsville a good race? I think I would probably give this race a 79. By Gen 7 standards at Martinsville, this was a really good race, and the soft tire absolutely worked. Controversy aside, what we saw on track was really entertaining. Yeah, sure, the first stage kind of got single file and didn't really do much, but as those tires started to wear and guys started to figure it out, the racing got a lot better. We had 6 different leaders who led 30 laps or more. We had, Brad Keselowski show up. He led 170 laps. At one point, it looked like it might be the Hendrick show. Carson Hocevar pissed off everybody, including the NBC booth. Me and all my friends hate Carson Hocevar. It's kind of what everybody at the track was saying. When he got spun out, the entire grandstand cheered. It was a nice coming together moment for everybody. Ultimately, like Jeff Burton said, the kid just needs to calm down. Like, nobody's intimidated by him. They're just tired of him now. And like Denny Hamlin got to the 77, didn't care, shipped him out of the way. Ryan Preece got to the 77, nope, don't care, doored him up out of the groove. Didn't even bother trying to race him. And that's just how he's going to get raced going forward. Has a lot of talent, needs to calm the heck down just a little bit. Then you have Ryan Blaney showing up there at the end. And it looks like this might be Kyle Larson's race to win. Then it might be Chase Elliott's race to win. And then Ryan Blaney shows up and he's like, no, slaps it down on the table. And he's like, this is still my race to win. I'm going to go back to Phoenix and defend my championship. That's what he does. He ends up winning the race. This race had some weird moments in it, though. Poor Martin Truex Jr., 2 speeding penalties, sat on pole, spun out. Not great for him. Coming to the green flag, Kyle Busch loses a right front tire, just pops off. The old Ron White bit. The right front tire falls off. It falls the F off because apparently the tire changer was absent on lug nut day. NASCAR goes green. As this tire is rolling down the front stretch, they go green, immediately go back to yellow. However, they went green. So any positions that changed, well, those are now official. So Ryan Blaney loses 2 spots in the course of that, from the start finish line to turn 1, green flag. Kyle Busch has to come back down. His crew members are getting a vacation. They're not going to Phoenix next weekend. They should not have gone green there. However, I understand why they did, because there's a lot of shade down there. And while it might not look that bad on TV, it's pretty dark down there with the shade. And you see a tire fall off, especially mid-pack, you're not going to notice that right as you're waving the green. So, yeah, I know people are upset about it, but I don't know what you want them to do in that situation because they're not looking at the tires of every car, especially in the mid-pack where Kyle Busch was. SVG's radio was like, he keyed up and he's like, a car lost a tire. Like, what? All right. And ends up going out on the racetrack. Speaking of SVG, he got used as a bit of a bowling ball by Ryan Blaney so that he could pass William Byron. The 16 team was not happy about that, and he was told to remember what the 12 did to him earlier in the race. That's a message from Chevrolet. So Chevy kind of getting their hands on everything in this race, kind of wanted the 16 to move the 12 out of the way, and ultimately maybe they knew what was going to transpire here, that the 12 was going to be the best car there at the end of the race and go on to win. It was a solid race. We had a lot of rubber buildup on the cars. Kind of felt like an old school Gen 4 race with how dirty these cars got. Absolutely love that. I think the tire performed really well. So hats off to Goodyear for that, for bringing the softest tire they've ever made on the left side. And then the right side option tire from Richmond as well as North Wilkesboro earlier this year. Maybe even go a little bit softer if you could, because I think that can make this racing even better. It was better than what we saw in the spring. It was better than what we saw last fall. And maybe there's a chance to kind of continue down that track as they're kind of stuck in a box with this current Gen 7 car. Overall, thought the race was pretty good. I know people are going to have some complaints about it because everybody's got complaints about everything. But ultimately, I think that it's unfortunate that Ryan Blaney's win was overshadowed by the multiple controversies that we had in the closing laps. I mean, 3 controversies in the final 10 laps, essentially, is what it came down to. And it sucks. It sucks that this is what we had to talk about, and we're not talking about Blaney going into the championship race in the final 4 for next weekend, which we will talk about probably in tomorrow's video. But for now, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Have to wait and see how it all plays out. Let me know what your thoughts are on the controversies, the actual race, what you enjoyed. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.